Hey everyone, we've got a lot to cover today because we're tracking a pretty significant storm that's going to be impacting the United States over the next few days. This isn't just your typical storm either. It's a massive system that's bringing with it a wide range of weather threats, including heavy rainfall, the risk of flooding, severe weather, and even some snow and freezing rain in the Northeast and Ohio Valley. So, as we head into February, it looks like we're in for some serious weather, and I want to make sure you're prepared and know exactly what to expect. Let's break it all down so you can stay informed. Right now, we have a major storm taking shape in the central and southern plains, and it's already been making its presence known. Over the past 24 hours, we've seen widespread thunderstorms and heavy rain, which have caused flooding in areas like Dallas and North Texas. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning. We're expecting this storm to keep ramping up over the next 24 to 48 hours, and that means more heavy rain and, of course, more flooding. Areas like Arkansas, northeast Texas, and southeastern Oklahoma need to be especially alert for possible flash flooding. What's driving all of this is a low-pressure system that's forming near the Four Corners region, and that's pulling in moisture from both the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. All that moisture is merging and creating a massive area of rain that's just going to keep building and spreading as we move through the next couple of days. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. In addition to the rain and potential flooding, we're also keeping a close eye on the severe weather threat today and tomorrow. As the storm continues to move eastward, we're looking at the potential for severe thunderstorms that could include damaging winds, large hail, and even a chance for isolated tornadoes. So while the rain is certainly a concern, we also need to stay on alert for those more dangerous conditions, especially in the deep south and southern plains. Thankfully, outside of the storm system, things are relatively calm across the country right now. The West Coast is in a pretty good spot weather-wise at the moment, but we do have some atmospheric river events heading that way soon, which will bring more rain to the region. On the East Coast, things are quiet for now, but that's going to change as the storm moves east in the next 24 hours. Before we dive further into the details of the severe weather, I want to take a moment to express my thoughts and prayers for everyone impacted by the tragic accident at Reagan National Airport. An American Airlines flight and a helicopter were involved in a terrible incident, and it was really unsettling to watch it unfold online last night. I know that this has been a really scary time for many people, and my heart goes out to everyone involved. We'll keep you in our thoughts, and we're all hoping for a quick recovery for those affected by this tragic event. Now, back to the weather. As I mentioned earlier, the severe weather risk is something we need to keep a close eye on, especially today. Southeast Texas and Louisiana are under a slight risk for severe storms, and that includes the Houston area, which could see some pretty dangerous weather today. We also have a marginal risk stretching across central Texas and parts of western Mississippi. The primary concerns today are going to be damaging winds and large hail, but there's also a conditional risk for isolated tornadoes. Personally, I don't think we'll see a major tornado outbreak today, but that risk is still there. It's definitely something to be aware of. If tornadoes do develop, the highest chance will be in southeast Texas and parts of central Louisiana, but we could also see brief tornadoes in places like Arkansas and western Mississippi. So even though the tornado risk today isn't that high, we still have the potential for one or two isolated tornadoes, particularly if we see enough instability in the atmosphere. This time of year, it's always a little tricky to judge how much instability there will be, and sometimes the computer models can overestimate it. That being said, there will definitely be some wind shear in place, which means that tornadoes are possible, but the overall risk remains relatively low. If tornadoes do form, they're likely to be brief, and we'll see the highest risk between mid-afternoon and sunset. By late evening, the tornado threat should diminish, and we'll see things quiet down by midnight. For today, we're expecting thunderstorms to move across the southern plains throughout the day, and these storms will have the potential to produce heavy rain and flash flooding. The line of storms is going to slowly push eastward, and by early afternoon, it'll weaken a little. But don't let your guard down, because as we head into the late afternoon and early evening, around 4 or 5 p.m., the storms will re-intensify as they move into Louisiana and Arkansas. That's when we could see some isolated storms fire up ahead of the main line. And that's where the greatest tornado risk will be if instability is high enough. Well, I think the tornado threat is going to stay on the low end today. We do need to keep an eye on things in case we get more significant storm development. As we go into the next few days, this storm will continue to grow and we'll see more widespread weather impacts. Tomorrow morning, Rain will be falling across a wide swath of the Midwest and Ohio Valley, and that will continue to push eastward through the day. Later on Friday morning, we're looking at a mix of snow and freezing rain in parts of northern Pennsylvania and southwestern New York. In higher elevations, we could see some slick roads, and this could lead to travel issues for those heading out on Friday. So if you're in these areas, make sure you're prepared for some icy conditions. The severe weather risk for tomorrow is a little lower, but there's still a slight chance for severe thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast. If you're in that region, stay weather aware, as there's still the potential for damaging winds and a brief tornado. By Friday night, snow will begin to ramp up in parts of the Northeast and the Great Lakes region, but this won't be a major snowstorm. Most places are only expecting a few inches of snow, but for places like northern Michigan and the higher elevations in New England, you might see a bit more. Snowfall totals should generally stay on the low end, but I'll keep you updated as we get closer. Looking ahead to next week, I know a lot of you are wondering when the next big winter storm is going to hit. It's true that we thought this storm might be the one to bring a massive snow event, but unfortunately that's not the case. Right now, there doesn't seem to be a major winter storm on the horizon, but as we get closer to mid-February, I do think we'll see an uptick in winter storm chances. For now, we're mostly looking at a few clipper systems that could bring some snow to the Northeast and Great Lakes, but nothing too significant. One thing we do know for sure is that this storm is going to dump a ton of rain. We're talking widespread totals of 1 to 3 inches of rain from Texas all the way through the Ohio Valley, and in some places, especially in southeast Missouri and northeast Arkansas. We could see 4 to 6 inches of rain, maybe even up to 8 inches in isolated spots. To put this into perspective, if all of this rain were snow, we'd be talking about a historic winter storm. So even though it's not snowing, flooding is a real concern in some areas, especially with the amount of rain we're expecting. By the second week of February, we can expect a more pronounced shift in the weather pattern, with the potential for more organized storm systems to develop across the country. The Pacific Northwest will remain a focal point for heavy rain and snow, while the rest of the West continues to experience winter weather, particularly in mountainous areas. The central U.S. will see fluctuating temperatures with some cool spells, but also periods of warmth, and this will likely cause some instability in the atmosphere, which could lead to thunderstorms, particularly in the plains and Great Basin regions. Meanwhile, the East Coast will experience more mild weather at times, but the potential for strong, gusty winds and stormy conditions will remain a concern. In terms of precipitation, there's also a likelihood that the Northeast will see more snowfall during this time, particularly in the latter half of the forecast period. The Great Lakes region could be impacted by heavier snowstorms, and parts of New England might see significant snow accumulation. The timing of these storms is still a bit uncertain, but it appears that they will primarily occur between February 9th and 15th, affecting both the Northeast and the Midwest. Models indicate the storm systems during this time could be intense, with the possibility of severe winter weather, including heavy snow, sleet, and ice. These storms could also bring strong winds and the potential for power outages in some areas. In the Southeast, the combination of warmer temperatures and moisture from the Gulf of Mexico could lead to thunderstorm activity, and this will remain a key feature of the weather pattern as we move further into February. As we reach mid-February, models suggest that the colder air may establish itself for a more extended period across the northern U.S. This could result in prolonged winter conditions, including persistent snow and ice storms, particularly across the Great Lakes and Northeast. The Midwest could experience additional rounds of snow, and parts of the northern plains may see the return of bitterly cold air, reminiscent of the cold spells earlier in the winter season. The South, however, will continue to see milder temperatures, but there is still the potential for sporadic outbreaks of colder weather as cold fronts move through. The West Coast will likely stay cooler, with the possibility of another active storm track bringing significant rain and snow to the region, which will help with the ongoing drought conditions in parts of California. Looking beyond mid-February, it appears that the weather will continue to exhibit a high degree of variability, with another series of storm systems potentially affecting the central U.S. and the East Coast. The forecast for late February suggests that a strong low-pressure system could form, bringing heavy snow to the Northeast and the Great Lakes, while another storm might bring rain and severe weather to the southern U.S. This active pattern could persist well into the final week of February, with more systems expected to bring rain, snow, and potential severe weather to different regions. Throughout this period, one of the most consistent features of the weather will be the fluctuations between warmer and cooler temperatures, which will likely lead to periods of instability in the atmosphere, increasing the potential for severe weather. While the South may enjoy warmer than average conditions for stretches, this warmth will often be disrupted by cold fronts, creating a battleground for thunderstorms, particularly in the Southeast and Gulf Coast regions. Additionally, snowstorms and cold waves will continue to impact the northern U.S. at various times, especially during the second and third weeks of February. Ultimately, while some areas will experience relatively mild conditions, the overall trend for the end of January and into February appears to be a continuation of a colder, more active winter pattern. Snowfall will continue to impact parts of the country, particularly in the Northeast and Great Lakes, and storm systems will keep the weather dynamic across the central U.S. and West Coast. The transition into February will see a mix of mild and colder periods, but the latter half of the month is expected to bring a return of winter weather with more snow, ice, and possibly severe weather, making it an unpredictable time for many regions. The key takeaway is that winter is far from over, and there's still plenty of potential for significant weather events in the coming weeks. Thanks for watching. See you next video.